Hi there and welcome back to the course. As I said earlier, we're going to start modelling the leg a little bit more and we're going to add some more detail to the body. So we'll select the leg and let's see how it's looking in dynamic. It looks quite organic, so we could make a few more cuts, make the brush bigger. Okay, remove dynamic. Make sure insert is selected. And with the Z modeler, make the cuts as usual. One here. Most of all on the areas of the joints and the ends. Another one here. Here. Dynamic, see how it's looking. Okay, we could make another extrusion, for example, to this area here. As we have polyloop selected, well, we can extrude like this in polyloop. And this creates this edge, this border, and it looks like the model has more detail. It looks quite good. So we'll extrude like this. And now we'll add some more cuts. Okay. So the next step is to implement the booleans. And for this, we're going to place a cube. Let's move it. We'll apply a polycube, dynamic to make it visible. As for the segments, we'll leave it at 1 for now. And now we'll just simply scale it. Let's move it. And we can start to think about where to place this cube that we can use as a kind of mold to make that space, the cavity that we'll do with the booleans. So for instance, we could place a cube here. Now, pressing Ctrl, if we move the object, a copy is made of the object that also joins the inactive object. So here we have these 3 elements. And as you can see, one doesn't have a mask and the others are inside a mask. So exit the mask, and we have these three elements joined together. This is also another way of modeling with this gizmo that makes it easier to make copies of the model pressing Ctrl. We could, for example, make this area like this, and now decide if we want this part to be a boolean or leave it as it is. So we could select this icon, click Live Boolean, and see how that shape, that space is implemented. Now you can duplicate this model and use it to make more detail in another area. For example, we could select this piece, rotate it, and do exactly the same thing on the top part of the leg. So select the icon, and there we go. Remember that at the same time we have this selected, in real time, we can easily modify this. We can easily adjust it. As you've seen, this is a fantastic way to model. Now what we could do is add another cavity here without having to constantly look at the mesh. Let's insert a cylinder. Turn it over, and with Shift we'll rotate it 90 degrees. Scale it. Rotate again. 90 degrees. Scale. And we could place it around here. As long as the model goes over where we want the cavity, that will be enough. So we'll click here, and automatically the hole is created. If you see it's too big, you can just scale it down like this. Maybe these holes might look better further down. We could make them a bit smaller. We could make a line of them in diagonal. So just go placing those holes at the bottom of the leg. Now we could make a copy of the shape, as I mentioned earlier, pressing Ctrl and moving. The problem is that when we go from this axis to another one, then we get this hole. So we'll just duplicate this area from here or from here. Duplicate it, and then patiently put it in place. Activate the Boolean, and let's continue. Activate the Boolean again, and make another one down here. Duplicate. We can scale it to make it smaller. Activate it again. Let's see how it's looking. So as I've said, this is an excellent way of modelling. Now, for instance, we can add some more detail to this area here. Let's try with another cylinder. Scale it down quite a lot. You can also do it from here. See that you have another line that I've added to be able to scale it. Now we can go directly to ZBrush to make a symmetry of this model towards the other side to make the most of this piece. So simply go to Z plugin and apply the symmetry. First, take a look at where that symmetry needs to be applied, in this case on the X-axis, Z plugin. We'll go to Subtool Master, and here in Mirror, select the option that makes the object join the symmetry on the X-axis. Okay, and see how the symmetry is created. There we go. Now, we can transform this into another Boolean. And then here we can add another tube if we want to add some more detail. So scale it, rotate it. As this ends in a point, and we're working with symmetry, we can rotate this perfectly, and the two pieces rotate symmetrically. If you think the effect is too exaggerated, you can lower this like this. Okay, so as you've seen, there are a few ways to do this to make the detail. Now, for instance, we could add some more detail here. Using one of the subtools we made earlier, we can duplicate it. We could lower it and place it at the end of the leg. Now activate the Boolean. See how depending on how we place it, we get one effect or another? Okay, now we're going to create some tubes. So make a cylinder. And starting from that cylinder, we'll deactivate the booleans so we can see all the mesh on the model. And with Z Modeler, remove a lot of these segments as we don't need them. Pressing Alt, we can get rid of them. Use Move to scale. Move this piece so that it's not in the way. Okay, let's make some cuts around here. And here. For this area, single poly, click on all the sides with the Alt key, all these sides, and then we'll extrude. We can do the same down here. So a cut here, and another one here. Select with Alt, select all the sides, and extrude again. Okay, we just left this one out. Now we have it. Now we're going to make some more cuts at the ends and in the corners as we've been doing up to now. And at the end. We can make a final cut right at the end. Okay, select dynamic. Let's see how it's looking. So this is what we'll place at these ends here. So we'll go to Move and scale this object so we can put it in place. If it doesn't quite reach, we can just stretch it a little bit more. Remember that as live boolean is deactivated, we can see the cylinder. So let's activate it, see what happens. And you might wonder, what's happening? Well, as we place the boolean, this has been affected too, but don't worry about that for now. Just place it like this. We'll go to Z plugin, mirror, merge, and select the X-axis. Okay, Now, to fix this, you just need to consider that the order of the subtools alters the result of the booleans. If I, for instance, place this subtool here, the tubes, and I lower with this icon, I lower right to the bottom, click, and I'll refresh. The previous booleans don't affect the tube anymore, which is exactly what we want. Always bear this in mind when you're working with booleans. The order of the subtools alters how the space is formed and what shape will form that space. Okay, now with symmetry activated, let's move those tubes further inwards. Let's carry on. We'll leave the leg like this and we'll move on with the body. So we have this here, activate the viewer, exit the booleans. Right now we don't need them. And let's see where we need to add more detail to this part of the model. In this case, we have these points here that we could use to make a hole, like we did before. Okay, so something like this. One here, another one here. By doing this, I get an identical hole. And to get an identical hole, ZBrush saves the result of the last action. So if I make a hole this size, okay, and now I click here, it will make another one of exactly the same size. If instead of clicking, I drag the mouse, then you can decide on the size you want it to be. So we'll do one here, another one here, another here, and one here. Now we want to extrude all of these. So we'll click, and we want to extrude all of this polygroup. And this way, we'll extrude all those holes that we made. You could add another cut here, and maybe another one here, to really define this area. Okay, we're really starting to get quite a lot of detail now. So what we could do is apply a boolean to the shell, to the body of our robot. And to do that, we'll use a cylinder. Let's remove the excess segments. And we can scale our cylinder. Okay, imagine I wanted to make a cut here. Okay, you can easily see how it's coming along. With Control, remember that you can duplicate that cut. And we can place it around here. Duplicate it again, and we can put another one here. And duplicate again to place another one up here. Now we can add a sphere. Scale the sphere. And now we could place the sphere where we want the boolean to be. So we could make a hole here, and we could make another one at the back. Okay. Let's insert a few more spheres. And we just want them to act as kind of eyes in those holes that we made before. So we'll put them in place. Duplicate the sphere with Control. And place it. Now remember that we have this as a mask, so activate Dynamic Solar, and pressing Ctrl and clicking outside of the model, invert the mask. This way we can decide where to place each sphere. Use the previous gizmo, as this is better for what we're doing right now. Invert the mask. Okay, when you have this, use Control to move. And this removes the mask, and now we can copy these elements as symmetry. Z plugin, mirror, and apply the symmetry. In this case, we can apply the symmetry to a different object. Okay. And here we have the other eyes. Okay, great. I think we'll leave it there for now, and I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll carry on modelling.